Are you tired of pretending that everything is picture perfect? Well, welcome to Dang. Join me, Todd Bridges, and my wife, Bettijo.
Hi.
I was reading where it says a good healthy gut, people have, they have gas 15, 20 times a day. And I thought that was something wrong with people, but I read it's not.
I don't know about that one. Because if I'm eating really clean, I do not have bad gas.
Bad gas and gas are basically this. I'm talking about just gas.
That's what I mean. I don't have that. If I'm not eating sugar and all the things, like if I'm eating that strict.
I live with you, so I love you. I live with you.
That's because I'm eating sugar.
Welcome back to TV legend Todd Bridges and his wife Bettijo. That was an exclusive clip from their new podcast, Dang. Where does the name Dang come from?
Well, I don't like to swear.
Oh.
So it's kind of like a cover for...
Oh, you're like my cousin. She says sugar, honey, iced tea.
Yes.
That's it. I like
we're
that.
talking about that messy side of life. And Dang is kind of like a flip over to the back side of the behind the scenes. Life is so messy.
Well, it's talking about gas with your spouse, which is not an easy thing to do.
No.
There's a whole episode of Sex and the City that I watch every once in a while. So the gas conversation, and I love how real you kept it. You're like, Bettijo, I live with you. That has to be fun to be able to be yourself.
It is fun to be able to be yourself. That's the thing, especially on podcasts. The thing is, it's all about being honest and telling the truth.
Yeah.
So people want to listen to you so they can laugh about it too, because everything's funny. Marriage is a work, but it's very funny too at the same time.
I love it too because and you talked about it, and we alluded at the beginning of the show, you're now decades of sobriety, and you said people don't like to talk about that.
No.
And we know that being a child star, your life has been under the microscope the entire, and people would often lead with the perceived mistakes you'd made and the things the decisions that you made as a child and hold them over. You talk about addiction on the podcast as well, from both of your points of view.
Oh yeah, we talk about addiction because it's important that people understand what addiction really is, what you go through. And for me, the toughest part about me in the beginning when getting sober was it was all over the news all the time. Yeah. And so I'm watching them embarrass me more than I already feel about myself in the beginning. So it was very difficult. Yeah. So you had to just end up turning off all the TV, and I went to a program and just kind of hid away for a while, and I didn't come back to show business for like 3 years.
Yeah.
I did a regular job.
What did you do?
I worked at a hospital as a chemical dependency tech.
Wow.
But things changed when I saw that first check. I was like, oh, I got to get back to show business.
TV,
I wasn't being mean, but I was like,
you're like, I love saving lives, but
zeros
TV
missing. I was like, something wrong. I worked 60 hours. That's all I got. I was like, woo.
Like, Bettijo, obviously, Todd, I told the team, and I've never said this out loud on TV, you were my first crush.
Oh, thank you.
I remember growing up. I remember this kid popping up with the perfect afro, and you and Michael Jackson. It was a tie. It was a tie right there.
Oh, yeah.
Bettijo, I'm assuming you knew of Todd's. You did not know anything about Todd Bridges?
I didn't.
Wow.
She watched Happy Days.
Oh,
They were in the same time slot, and at those times you had to pick which channel
you
you
did
would
have to
watch.
pick.
Well, funny enough, I had a crush on Henry Winkler. So clearly, I just stayed watching TV, falling in love. So you picked Henry Winkler and the Fonz.
I didn't get to pick. My mom picked.
Oh, scandal. So you didn't know.
No, and that same friend that was doing that market research for the dating profile, she kept saying she had this famous friend, Todd Bridges, but I was like, I don't know who that is. Every time she says something, I'm like, okay, great,
You're like, I don't know. And then when you found out, like, oh, it's Todd Bridges.
No, I still didn't.
Still didn't
Then
know?
she did market research.
I did. I Googled him the week before I was going out to meet him. I Googled his name because I figured if he's famous, he should show up on Google, right? I saw some terrible stuff out there. It was like crazy stuff. And I called my friend, I'm like, what did you get me into? Who is this guy? He sounds crazy. And so I kind of got caught up on that and didn't get a deep dive into who he was. It was when we were on one of our first dates. We were wearing masks still, and somebody recognized him with the mask on, and I was like, whoa, this guy really must be famous.
Right.
If people are recognizing him with a mask on.
I love that your honesty with that, because obviously, to your point, Todd, people all of his life unfairly led with mistakes that a child made. And now you have a choice at that moment, right? Am I going to read all of the negative, or am I going to get to know this person who they are today? And I celebrate that, because on paper, people look at you, right? And that you said, wait a minute, let me talk to this person and get to know him. How would you describe him now?
Oh, he's actually a lot more sensitive than people realize. And I think that
Don't
that's
give
why.
my secrets away.
I think that's why it is hard, because shame is such a part of that addiction cycle.
Yeah.
And so he takes so much of that to heart. But also he is so fiercely protective and loyal. That's really what I love about him, is his loyalty, and that he keeps me safe. Do you know what I mean? Like that protector.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Listen, coming up, Todd returned to the set of Diff'rent Strokes as part of a new headline-making documentary on the death of Todd's beloved co-star Gary Coleman. What was that like to reveal things that he'd never discussed before after the break? Back with legendary actor Todd Bridges and his wife Bettijo. Todd and Bettijo recently released a podcast, but also Todd appeared on a documentary about Diff'rent Strokes, that iconic show he starred with Gary Coleman in. It is simply called Gary. It's a documentary that delves into the story of Gary's well-documented struggles with fame and his tragic death in 2010. Here's a clip.
The kid was a true star.
Diff'rent Strokes was a groundbreaking show. The audience loved Gary.
He had a spirit about him. He was always an entertainer.
If someone had told me my life would have been like this early enough where I could have got out, I would have got out.
You went back on the set of Diff'rent Strokes and filmed yourself. You are the last survivor.
Yes.
Everyone in this photo is no longer here.
No, yeah, I'm the sole survivor of the show, yeah. And it's, you know, if you'd have looked at my past, you wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
But God knew what he was doing, and he had it planned for me, so that's why I'm still here.
It's so true. I love that you said of Conrad Bain that he was a father to you more than your biological father.
Yeah,
you wrote that in your book.
Yeah, my father had he was going through a lot, but I understand it now, because I couldn't imagine being a black man born in 1920, what he had to go through. You know, if I went through a lot, he must have went through really a lot. So, you know, I finally got it, but Conrad was there for me more than my father was at that time. So, yeah.
When you look back at this show, I mean, that brings so much joy, and knowing that Dana Plato passed away of addiction struggles. Gary's death is in this documentary presented as a mystery. There are still questions behind it. You didn't make the decision because you're a kid. Yeah. But Gary said in that clip, almost sounding as if it wasn't worth it, that he would have chosen a different path.
I did make the decision. Yeah. The difference was my mom didn't force me into anything. I was like, hey, I want to do television. She's like, all right, but once you start something, you shouldn't quit it. That's all she said. Yeah. And
but you didn't know what you were signing up for.
No, because it's different today than it was back then. What you were signing up for back then, you know, there weren't a lot of laws protecting us. That was the difference. My mom had to protect me a lot. There was times on the show where they tried to get me to, like one of my heroes was Muhammad Ali. They tried to get me to insult Muhammad Ali, and I said, I'm not saying that. That's my hero. And they're like, oh, you'll say we're going to fire him. Mom, I said, well, you better go ahead and fire him, because he ain't saying it. Right. And then finally, you know. Yeah. Al Burton stepped in, one of the nice producers stepped in and said he doesn't have to say it. He don't want to say it, doesn't need to say it.
So you had your mom Betty as your advocate.
Oh, yeah.
And in the documentary, it reveals a lot more about Gary's absence of an advocate in his life as well. I mean, it's always complicated when you talk about things that once the layers are peeled back, you recognize the pain, but there is so much joy. Yeah. And you never watched the episodes.
No, I never watched it.
I've watched them all for you. Let me tell you, you were brilliant and are brilliant in that show. And brilliant, and everyone loves Chris. I love it. So at the beginning of the show, I showed my little lunch boxes. You told me that Mork and Mindy was not the original title.
No, it wasn't. Originally, Mork and Mindy was called Mork for Mork, and I actually had the job.
You did?
Yes.
As Mork?
No, I was playing Mork's, he lived in his grandmother's house of a black kid and lived in the attic, and I was supposed to be there. What happened was I turned the job down to take Diff'rent Strokes, and then they changed the whole premise, so thank God I did that.
Oh my God!
Yeah. It became Mork and Mindy.
I love it. So as I said, Bettijo, your husband was my first crush. So the team found this for me because I love collecting all this memorabilia. This is gonna take y'all back. Look at the TV guide.
Oh my God.
The team found of Todd and Gary. Look at that.
Look at my hair.
Look at your hair.
Afro.
I said, the only thing that's changed is the hair. Your face is exactly the same.
Yeah.
It is, you understand? This is my dream. I'm shaking. This is my dream. Can you autograph this?
Yes, of course I can.
Oh my God. My TV guide is signed. I know. It's
Wow,
crazy.
that's so old. This is like you don't even need a TV guide no more. But this is great.
Yes,
But I
children.
remember looking in here. Remember? You look at TV guide.
Now you just turn on your TV and there's
Yep.
the guide. But back in the day, children, we used to have to get this
Yeah.
to find out what was on TV. Give it up for Todd Bridges and Bettijo. You can watch Everybody Still Hates Chris on Comedy Central. And dang, with Todd and Bettijo, their new podcast launches this week.